Hello, this is Cindy Kraus, and I'm going to show you guys how to change those images and then make certain that when the students see the images that they are correctly sized for their screen. And we really govern a lot. We do that through controlling the widths, and we have to do that through the HTML code. So I'm just going to show you, this is a template that's not, it's one that I created, but as I looked at it, I'm thinking, you know what, here's this extra column over here that if someone was doing remote teaching, they would need a virtual classroom. But it's like, hey, this course is not for virtual teaching setup, so I only need to have the 3 columns. I don't need 4. And I'm going to put my announcement at the top of the page. So I don't need this last column. So that's kind of where I'm starting my edits, is making that decision. So if you have a table, and whether you need to add a column or remove a column, this is what you're going to do. So click in the column, whether you're going to add to the left, add to the right, just click somewhere in that table. I'm going to be on the column that I need. Now, as soon as you click in the table at the bottom, sometimes it's at the top, this little menu will appear, and hopefully you can see it down here where we have table properties, delete table, insert table row. So those are the different options. They're very basic. They're not like if you're inside Word, but we can delete the entire column, and that's what I'm going to choose to do. So I'm going to delete the column. And my table just resized itself. And every time you make major changes like that, the Canvas is going to resize things. So we want to make sure, in general, we only like to go into HTML code maybe once. We don't want to constantly have to go in and do that. So I tend to make all of my changes with my images before I start looking at the HTML code. And I do all of that at the end. Now, to do this, when we're looking at each one of these icons had a link. So if you would click on coursework, let me go ahead and save deleting that. So when we're live on one of our templates, if we click on coursework, it's going to take us somewhere inside Canvas, in this case, to modules. So we maybe don't want those links broken. We just want to change the picture. And so that's what we're going to be looking at, is how do we just change the picture without worrying about the link. So I'm back to editing it. Now that I kind of showed you this is what we want to have happen. So this first one is the course calendar. So I'm going to click on that one. It's like, these are cute little icons, but I think I want something a little bit different. So we're going to embed image. Now I already have some images loaded in the course files. Kristen Hopkins made them for us. We use them at the secondary level, but you may have your own images that are built into your templates that you want to choose, or maybe there's something that you yourself created. It's easier if they're in the folder. I renamed this folder with that 00, so I knew it would be at the top of my list because I didn't want to have to keep scrolling. When I'm done, I'm going to go back and rename that folder out of my files, because sometimes it gets pretty tedious. I've looked at all of these images, and I know that I liked option 7. So I'm going to click on option 7, and there's some of my choices. And that first one was for the calendar. So I need to select the calendar icon. It's tempting to click upload file because it's right there underneath where we set. If you click on that, all it's going to happen, they're going to say, pick the file. Oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to use the picture that's already there. So just scroll down. And as you scroll down, you will see the dimensions are given as a 200 by 200 for this particular image. We really want this to be percentage, but we cannot select percentage on this as when we embed the image. We cannot embed images with percents. So all we can do is update the picture, and it's going to be that 200 by 200. Notice immediately my table changed. So not necessarily now the most user-friendly, but what we can do is click on your table anywhere and do the resizing, and you can actually pull that out in size. Let me make it noticeably not as wide so that you can kind of see when we go in and do some of the other edits. So if I'm going to grab coursework, I'm going to just change this one pretty quick. I'm going to go in. I'm not going to necessarily do every single one of these on this one. That's right. I put them in my homepage icons. Number 7. And if you can't remember, you can grab this a little bit and do some side to side. It's like, yeah, I was doing coursework. So let me make sure I grab the coursework. Again, it's a 200 by 200 image. I'm going to go ahead and update that. It's like, still don't like the looks of it, but you know what? I really want to grab my images first. So let me grab my Canvas resources or course resources. These are course resources. So again, grab the image. I was in option 7. Just go to resources. Notice again, my dimensions are the 200 by 200. I'm not going to worry about that. So I've done the first row. Oh, does not look at all like I like. But I'm going to go ahead and save this right now, because when I start working with HTML code, I really want to make certain that that's all I'm doing at that time. I don't want to overload. But you know what? Weirdly enough, when I saved, things spaced out just a little bit better, but I can tell they're not all the same size, and there's not really what I want. And I want it to fill the screen, so when they rotate, it'll happen. So back to edit. Since I have the core elements, oh, wait a minute. I was going to show you then that because we did it as updates to our image, if I were to click on one of these, like I showed you earlier, coursework, when I click on coursework, it will still take me to that same point in Canvas. It is still taking me into the modules. So we're only changing the images, we're not changing the links. And that's part of the process of what we're working on. So now when I go into edit, now I'm just working on the width. This is kind of the crux of what we're trying to do here is work on these widths. And to do this, we have to go into the HTML editor up here in the upper, well, just right above where you're editing. You see this HTML editor. And that's the only way we can do this. I wish there was an easier way, but there is not. And HTML code can be kind of scary. I understand that. I really am not an expert at HTML code. I'll be the first to say that, even though I do have a big computer background. HTML is not something I ever particularly studied, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, where do I start? And you really just start looking for words maybe you recognize. I'm going to be honest. So I'm looking through and I'm like, oh, look, there's my name. Wonderful. Okay, what's that doing? Oh yeah, it was a contact teacher button. Now I remember. So that was how I was setting up. Yeah, there's that button, BTN, button. Okay, so this was all taken. So that was above my table. So it's like, well, that's not what I want. So I need to know. I know I need to go further down. So as I keep scanning, lots of this. Ooh, this is an important word that you're going to be looking for, and that is called table style. Okay, that's the beginning of my table, and everything I have with my images is done through a table. And notice right now, what's my width listed for my table? This is the whole table. Remember when I resized it, I knew it wasn't quite the full screen. It's like it's at 83%. Well, if I were to take this and say, you know what, I want my table to fill the screen. So I'm going to say, I want the whole table to fill the screen. Let me save that. And lo and behold, now my table is the same size as my banner. So I know it's filling the screen. So that's definitely one thing, is get that table width. It doesn't have to be 100%, by the way. If you want it to be something a little bit smaller, the only thing is tables have to be 100% because we can't center a table. They're always going to be aligned left. I wish that was not the case, but clearly it's still not what we want. So back to the HTML editor we go. And now I know I was looking for that magic word table. So here's kind of where that table style is. My width is 100%. TR is your table row. And right now it's telling me the height is going to be this 29px. It just means at least 29 pixels, and it's variable for the x. I'm not really worrying about the height of the rows. I'm really looking at the widths here. In TD class, instead of TC for column, it is the division. So we're looking at how are we dividing the table up. And the TD class here is saying that right now my width, because my original table was 4 columns, I was using 25% for my column width, but it also had this max and min width, which doesn't really matter. I don't need the max min width or that height. So I'm going to basically take away all of that and turn this into the 100%. Okay. I think I can take away that semicolon because I added the quotation marks. You know what? This one was done a little differently. Let me put that quotation back and not use the quotation marks. You're kind of really trying to match things the way they were done. And all of this is the style. And you see way down here, we're going to have at the end of the text to line center is where we get the double quote ending. So then we see some of this is kind of where it's linking to. That's all fine. But now we see the image. We're looking for things like image class. This is the word, IMG class. Okay, so it's how's it coming in? Where is it finding? If you remember, it was calendar 7 was the name of it. Sometimes you would just look for the name of the file, but you're always going to be finding that width and height. When you have updated an image, it always comes as pairs, width and height. You will see both of those numbers that were in your embed image. And so here, normally this is always done with those double quotes and double quotes. We do not need height. I'm going to take everything from that inside the first double quote. I'm going to grab the height and then leave the second double quote, and I'm going to put in the 100%. Okay. I'm going to look down. Here's immediately my next TD class for that next column. Again, because I had 4 columns, I want to change this to my 33. I typically go 4 decimal places when I'm rounding, just because I want it to be, as close to 1/3 as possible. Now, again, I'm scrolling on down. I'm seeing my next image for coursework 7, that width of 200 by 200. And again, I want to change that to the 100%. And I had one more column I was working with. Change that. Again, scroll on down. Where's my 200 by 200? At this point, I'm just looking for the 200 by 200. I'm not really even hardly reading. I'm just looking for that 200 by 200. Those are the 3 things that I had changed. And woo, that's not what I wanted, is it? So let's go see what may have happened, because that happens. So let me go in. What did I do? Miss a decimal point? Let's see. Because this one, my TD class here, ended up at 100%, which I do not want. I'm not sure why that one turned into the 100%, because TD is not the table, if you remember. So let's see. I don't know why that was 100. Let's see if that fixed it. It did. So if you have that percentage is a little bit off, just go in and make certain that the TD, which is the column itself, gets it perfectly spaced out, so you don't have one wide column and one narrow column. But then when you look at the image, you want the image to fill that screen or fill that cell. So that's why those were all set at 100%. Okay. So I'm going to be creating a second video on maybe if you want to do something a little bit different, a little customization. Maybe you don't want it to be a full 100%, or maybe there was a problem and you need to change the link. You don't want that link. You want a different link. So look for part 2 on the videos, and this is it for the basics